welcome to the Vegan Stew. I'm Helene, and it's been a hot minute since I've been live on the show because I have been traveling, funerals, hospice, sick. It's been a whole gamut of things going on our world over here. Plus, we have a festival on April 24th, which is Wilmington Veg Fest, and Dawn has an event that's coming up on the 30th of April. Eat, Drink, and Disrupt in Greenville, South Carolina. So you may, as the this week and next week goes on, see a bit more stress in our faces. And then Kimberly is recovering from COVID. So it has been it's been an interesting stew crew. But that's life. And we just keep bringing you the show as best as we can. So first, let's say thank you to TerraSeed for being our sponsor this month. We absolutely love them. And you can win prizes from our sponsors monthly with our Wish Pond, which you go to virtualvegfestlive.com and you can win a prize from TerraSeed, Hodo Foods, Veg Key, which is new this month, Follow Your Heart, Revolution Gelato, Rebel Cheese, Cinnaholic, and Fabulish. Have you tried Rebel Cheese? Use the code VegFest, all caps, and get 10% off by going to rebelcheese.com. So you can lose my voice. It's amazing. Highly recommend. Definitely check them out. And we're graciously love them for being a sponsor too. So remember that you can add comments to the show, ask questions while we're live for the show. You can do all that and be part of it. And we talk about current events. And this week's topic is National Minority Health, or I say national, it's Minority Health Month because it's really international. So, and Dawn's going to lead us on that topic, which is great. So let me bring the stew crew in and we'll start our conversation. There's Kimberly from Did You Bring the Hummus? We got Kelly from Climate Healers and the Vegan Abler. And we got Dawn, the Vegucator from Greenville in her car, which is great because she had to achieve some promotion for her festival. So I want to start us off tonight with something you guys don't know that I wanted to talk about. And it'll directly, I think Kimberly will understand this. I think we'll all understand it. I want to talk about the human body for a moment. Hey, Steven. Look, Steven's watching from downstairs. That's awesome. So I want to talk about the human body for a second. You see like sci-fi shows and like TV movies, and someone gets cut and they take a little laser and they go over that cut and it heals instantly. Like what I'm talking about? We see it on television all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what the human body does. And that's what is remarkable to me, because if we were live last week, I couldn't be talking like this. We did our in-house like get together, and I couldn't speak this long without coughing. And I had so much congestion. And you think when you're sick that you're going to be sick forever. But then you heal, and you have to stop and think about the human body. There goes my voice. And how we heal. And we do that over the course of our lifetime. We get sick, or we get hurt, we get a cut, we get a scrape, we break a bone, we heal, just like in the movies. But no one ever thinks of it like that because it's not instantaneous. But that's what we do as a human body. And then if you factor in that we're vegan or whole food plant-based, and we heal probably more quickly in general than people who are eating a terrible diet. This is like, it's like miraculous stuff and no one talks about. Hi, Diane. Welcome. Thoughts, feelings?
So my thoughts on that. We don't. Okay, I'm gonna say something. I always jump in. Hi, guys. I missed a few minutes when we get to talk, and I can get some out. Sorry. So yes, healing. We never heal when we're eating foods that are constantly, wearing on our body system. So yeah, you heal when you're a healthy vegan, and you heal when you're whole food plant based, and of course you do some healing when you're even a junkie vegan, just not as much because of the amount of added oil and fats and sugars. But the healing only happens in a plant, when you're plant based, or when you're plant based, or when you're a vegan. Otherwise, it's the opposite. you're damaging, you're increasing risk factors for chronic disease, and every 2 or 3 hours you're putting in more toxic things that can perpetuate your illness. They do not make you better. People that have a cold and they do dairy, immediately they get more mucus. So no. So it only works for us. So everybody get on board.
Kimberly, you have something to say?
I am in full agreement. Even though I am very much a comfort food vegan and have been for quite a few years now, when I love all of these doctors like Dr. Greger and Dr. Weiss and Dr. Esselstyn, and they, when they talk about the power of food and how it either heals or harms us, and you look at like Dr. Esselstyn and his wife Anne are in their late 80s, and his wife Anne will post videos of her up at their farm with like a rope tied around her waist. She's pulling giant tractor tires. She's a tiny lady, but she is fierce, and she is so healthy, and she is so strong because of the way that they feed themselves. And it's so powerful when we think, even like as someone like me, and I realize I'm rambling, I'm almost done. When I eat so much comfort food and there's so much sugar, and then I go to a more natural, whole food, plant-based diet for a while, it's like instant. My snoring reduces. I am more clear-headed. And if there was something kind of achy, it's like gone. It's like, it's magic. I really think it's magic. Yeah.
Kelly, you have something to share?
Well, I don't know if this is related at all, but I'm kind of a tattoo addict. I have a lot of tattoos. And whenever I go and see my tattoo artist, they're always like, I'll be like, they're like, do you have any trouble healing? Like, no scabs, no nothing, And they're like, really? So I don't know if that is part of it, but maybe I just feel, I don't know.
We're going to claim it. We're going to claim it. We're going to claim it.
After I got, almost all of them after I've been vegan. And I never have any troubles with them. I don't scab. I heal like right away. so I want to say it's because I'm vegan.
Yeah,
mine too.
I have tattoos
mine
too.
too.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's 3 people. Is that enough?
Well, it makes sense from just a biological perspective, because you think about the healing inside that goes on when you're eating plants, and your outward appearance is just a reflection of your inner health. So if your inner health is, your gut flora is healthy, you're going to be making all those good, all the good hormones, all the good gut biome is going to promote a quicker healing process. That's why muscles recover faster when you're plant-based and you're vegan, because of what you're eating. So it would make sense that your skin, which is also a body, it's all over your body. It's part of the metabolic system. So yeah, it would make sense that that's why you don't have scabs, or not excessive scabs. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to just, let's roll with it. Yeah.
All right, cool. So I just wanted to bring that up because I haven't been feeling well, and Kimberly having COVID, and we're healing relatively well. Like, Kimberly didn't stop doing her show. Nope. She had got COVID and she still did Fireside Chat with Kimberly every Monday at 7 p.m. So we'll plug that. That's pretty remarkable. And if I would have done the show last week, probably muted more than talking, but I would have done it. I had the energy to do it, but I probably would have been really tired after, but I could have done it. So I did our meeting. I just did it from downstairs on the laptop. So, I mean, this is, like I said, it's miraculous stuff. So next time you see in a movie, they take a laser to fix a cut. I mean, we're not bringing people back to life from dying, but next time they see something like that, just think that science-wise, our bodies actually do that. And when you're vegan and whole food plant-based, you have an even better foundation than you would if you're not. So, Kelly, what's our news?
Okay, so there was a recent article in Veg News discussing a recent diabetes study that showed how eating a whole foods plant-based vegan diet might help reduce type 2 diabetes. 450 million people worldwide suffer from diabetes, and as we know, the epidemic is fueled largely by unhealthy diets that's filled with animal products, and then also lifestyle factors and lack of exercise. It was published in the scientific journal Diabetologica, and it was conducted by researchers at the Department of Nutrition, Harvard, T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and found, the study included 10,684 participants. Now, granted, the people who were part of it, I hope I didn't not post, was largely a particular demographic. Yeah, I don't have it, but it was like, I think, white middle-aged men. Like, so it wasn't like they needed more study, but they like separated the into different cohorts, and one of them was like an overall plant-based diet, a healthy plant-based diet, and unhealthy plant-based diet, and then I guess everything else. And so the people who they saw, with the best scores afterwards, were in the like plant-based and healthy, and in the people in the unhealthy plant-based diet, actually they didn't see as significant of results. But yeah, I mean, overall, eating plant-based is definitely reduces your the possibility of you getting type 2 diabetes. And like I said, like, more research needs to be done. Here it was. So the participants were predominantly white, middle-aged men, with 54 being the mean age and a mean body mass index of 25.6 kilograms. So they definitely need more diversity to kind of, make this study a little bit more, fair and and unbiased and all that. But it's encouraging.
So, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll be quick, because I'm sure that Dawn's got all the stats and stuff. But I just want to
It's terrible.
to point out, to remind people or inform people to do some research about diabetes, because people think, oh, I have diabetes, I can't, it's all about the sugar. I can't eat sugar. I can't eat white pasta. And don't eat those because they're not healthy for you. But so much of diabetes comes from all of the fat in your diet. So you'll see people that are diabetic, and there are some people that I know in my own life, they're not vegan, they are diabetic, and they will avoid white pasta. They will avoid, when they feel like it, sugar. What they won't avoid, a giant plate of all kinds of meat. And they're like, this is not bad for my diabetes. Yes, it is. Go ahead, Dawn.
Yeah, I agree. So I was going to go in on this with the Sobieski study. So that was a great one, Kelly. I wish I had been on earlier so I'd have known. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. I heard everything you said now, but I wish I had heard it earlier. So Neil Barnard, Dr. Neil Barnard, has done some great research, and he has a book, how to reverse diabetes, a program to reverse diabetes. So everybody should pick up that book, The Program to Reverse Diabetes. He's got an actual book on that. And there have been several studies that were diverse, like the Adventist study. The Adventist study has a portion of that. This is long, but it has diabetes in there, type 2 diabetes reversal, and it shows predominantly African American. The cohorts are including African American. So there are a lot of good studies out there already that include this new study's good, because a lot of people have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, but it's preventable, treatable, and reversible with plant-based. They've proven that time and time again. I was going to mention the Sobieski study about the fats and sugars with the healthy vegan versus the whole food plant-based versus the vegetarian versus the omnivore. The Sobieski study was highlighted. Just look it up, JB Sobieski, spelled phonetically. It'll spell out. The difference between the fat and sugar intake of a healthy vegan versus a whole food plant-based versus a meat eater. The meat eater and the vegan who just eats regular vegan is 0.6% for the sugars and 0.4% for fats. So there's not much bandwidth between the intake of sugar and fat for a for a vegan. The whole food plant-based was double digit better. So it's just the intake of fats and sugars that are horrible, but the meat is absolutely what drives up those diabetes numbers because of the amount of egregious amounts of fats and oils in there as well. But if you're eating a junky vegan diet, you're also going to tip your numbers as well. It's not as helpful for reversing.
That's a really good point. One of the things when I was an ethical choices educator, or I went into the classroom, we would talk about health. And my dad actually died from diabetes and strokes when I was 18. So he was 59 years old, 58, 59 years old. And in watching the movie What the Health, you've learned about what you've both spoken about in that it's the fats and not the sugars. See, I tell the story to the kids that when I was younger, my dad had a friend who owned a stationery store, which not sure you know what a stationery store is. A lot of people who are younger, a lot younger than us, but it's actually a store where they sold stationery and had like ice cream and like a counter, like where you could buy food and cards. It had everything. It's called a stationery store, which they no longer do. So he would go there from work, he'd stop and they'd give him candy and he would get his favorites, his favorites. And he'd bring them home and he would hand them to me and go, I brought you candy. And I'd be like, oh, great. They were like Chuckles. Remember Chuckles? They're like solid sugar gel with
Chuckles.
sugar on and different colors, right?
Yep.
So he made me like those candies, which are his favorites. And I would put them in my room because I'm the youngest child so that my siblings wouldn't eat them. And in the middle of the night, he would come in and eat them. And I always
He's
thought
like
that
Santa
was...
Claus eating the cookies.
And he would eat like spoonfuls of peanut butter, but not the natural peanut butter that we eat today. He would eat Jiffy or Peter Pan, whatever the brands were, or Skippy. And that has full of oils and sugars in it. And I always thought until What the Health that it was the sugar that caused him to get the type 2 diabetes. Because I was like 8 years old giving him insulin shots. I was filling the vial. I was doing the whole thing with the alcohol swab, putting it into his leg. And then you stop and you go, wait, yes, he ate a lot of sugar. He stole my candy. But he also ate a lot of meat and a lot of fat and a really unhealthy diet. And you go, that's it. That's where the type 2 diabetes came from. The sugar added to his weight. The diet kept him sick enough that it ended his life in his 50s. So that's, and if I talk to someone, that's something that I really impress upon people. You don't want to die in your 50s. Being in our 50s now, me and Dawn, imagine only living like a handful more years. Could you even imagine that? No. No, and self-caused.
Well, all diseases, unless it's congenital, all disease is degenerative, which is self-caused.
Yep.
Lifestyle related.
Yeah.
But sugar does spike your insulin. If you're eating sugars that are, so I just want to make a little bit of an adjustment there, not disrespecting at all, and sorry about your dad, but the glycemic index, it's important to know the glycemic load of what you're eating. So fast movers that spike your insulin and sugar does do that. If you're eating the high fructose corn syrup, regular sugar, marshmallows, all that, Oreo cookies, all that stuff, those are spikers. But slow movers are your maple syrups, your agaves. They're low on glycemic index, which means they don't spike your insulin. So yeah, sugar, if you eat a whole fruit versus orange juice, if you eat an orange versus orange juice, an apple versus apple juice, that's not going to spike your sugar. So sugar does play involved as well, but the fat does too. But sugar is not innocent. And even though Dr. Barnard talks about that, he'll tell you in his book, it depends on what kind of glycemic load that has and what kind, if it's a slow mover and minimally processed.
Right. And back then, there was no such thing as agave.
Yeah, well, there was. They didn't sell it like that. They didn't sell it like that. And Tilted Planet. Okay, who put that on there? That's good.
It's great.
Cool
Okay.
beans. Mhm.
Oops. Hide. There we go. All right. So it's a great segue to our topic of the month. Of the month,
Yes.
of the week. It could be the month of the week. Well, it's a monthly topic that we're talking about this week.
Mhm.
Dawn, take it away.
Take it away. I'm barely able to take myself out of this car, so please forgive me, guys, if I am not very prepared for today's hosting. But it is, we have a month. There's a month for everything, and since 2015, the Office of Minority Health and the Health and Human Services Departments created the National Minority Health Month. And I had to look at my notes because I didn't get a whole lot of chance. So the point of the month is to raise awareness about health disparities that disproportionately plague Black, Indigenous, people of color communities at a very higher tick as it relates to incidences of death and disability from our top chronic diseases and other things. But that's the point of the month, to kind of raise awareness and bring education. And I actually called the department, the NIH, and I called the National Institute of Minority Health. I don't know what they're doing, honestly, but this month they don't do much. They just say they have a month. So I asked them exactly what they were doing. I did some digging. Didn't seem to be a whole lot. This year they're focusing on the getting boosted, your COVID shots, because of the disparities that go on with the disproportionate amount of dying in Black and brown communities with COVID. But really, I think they missed the boat, because I think we need to be talking about nutrition, because the underlying causes is what makes you more susceptible, and because we lead in those, that's why we're here. But that being notwithstanding, it is not Minority Health Month, so I wanted to. I mean, there's health disparities. I just wanted to get a feel for from the group. What have you noticed? Were you aware that the health disparities were so significant, that African Americans are leading all the top chronic disease categories, Latinos lead in type 2 diabetes, behind African Americans? Were you aware of those disparities? And to just take it away, Kimberly, if you want to start.
Only very recently, honestly,
Mhm.
did I realize that and really start to notice what's happening and the lack of food availability, like fresh food in certain areas and things like that. So yeah, I'm seeing more about it now, and I've been looking into it more myself, but no, I can't remember hearing about it a lot. Before probably the last couple of years.
That's good. That's good. That's good information too, to know that in my community, I think everybody knows. So Kelly,
Right.
what do you have? What's your story on that?
I'm the same with Kimberly. Like, I only learned about this actually through the Clubhouse app. With there were BIPOC plant-based. Like, there's a huge community of BIPOC plant-based people in Clubhouse, and so that's where I learned about, like, food deserts, food apartheid for those the communities, and then the health disparities as well here in Canada. Yeah, it's definitely not something that's openly talked about. So
Wow.
yeah, most of the learning that I know is just through my own research and just being open-minded and wanting to learn.
That's good. That's good. That's good. It's Helene, what is your story on it?
I knew about this. Part of the reason is Veg Fest. I feel like a lot of people, it became more highlighted because of COVID, because that's where they said who was working still, who had to work still, who was going into stores and doing the shopping for the people who didn't have to go to the stores and do the shopping, who exposed themselves to COVID more, who was more prone to get COVID and die from it. And that becomes a minority community. And that's, the food deserts. It's been spoken about. Speakers at Veg Fest, talk about that. It's absolutely horrendous that an area of this country doesn't have the availability for fresh fruit or fresh vegetables, and that you have to go farther away to get them, or it's just I feel like instead of in Canada, I don't know what it's like in Canada. I know in this country, the haves and have-nots is it's more prevalent. I don't know how you walk on this earth in this country and not realize that there's a significant amount of people in our population who are disadvantaged health-wise, economically, work, equal pay, everything. It just
So that pulls in, Helene, to the systemic inequities. So it's not just the food. So food deserts. Let's educate our audience a little bit. Food deserts does not really encapsulate African Americans. Despise the word food deserts because they don't live in natural deserts are naturally occurring, and nobody that lives in a food desert thinks it's a desert. The only people who think it's a desert are the Department of CDC that decided that it was going to be a desert. It's not a desert. It's because it changes when the geography changes. When gentrification happens in the same neighborhood, it's no longer there's all of a sudden there are grocery stores. So it's not a desert. It's systemic. It's the leftovers from redlining. It's systemic inequities and the lack of access because of poverty and racial inequities that are going on. So it's really called food apartheid. So we started calling it food apartheid. Karen Washington coined the term quite a while ago. So that's a more apropos term, but it's really good that we're having this conversation because sometimes the only reason African Americans are very aware of the fact that there is a disparity is because we have so many deaths. We're going to funerals all the time. It's like funerals are like family reunions. It's really sad, to be very honest with you. And that's where everybody goes to eat the killer meat and food that killed the person upstairs. So, and that happens in every community, but it happens disproportionately in communities of color because of the extreme rate of death and disability. So, I guess outside of food access, does anybody have any thoughts on what other barriers there might be other than food access? Because there are a couple other ones, and I'm just kind of putting it out there to see if you guys have any other information. Do you have a dinger?
So that too. Yeah.
Kimberly, go Kimberly.
What about like access to proper health care that's affordable?
Ding ding. I wish I had a buzzer bing. That's it. Bing bing bing. Access to health care and access to appropriate diagnoses. So that's one of them. Kelly, I'll go into that a little bit more because there was some studies on that. Kelly?
I'm not sure. I mean, we're lucky here and that we have our healthcare covered.
That's true. Yeah, I would love to, Kelly, I would love to know a little bit more in Canada about if there are the disparities in Canada, since you have full coverage healthcare. Do the same problems exist? Because there are barriers in Black and Brown. This is Indigenous. This is Native American, Alaskan. This is poor whites, but specifically Black and Brown, Hispanic, and Indian and Asian have problems too with this. I'm getting inappropriate diagnosis, being sent home because there's no health care or something, or being sent home with the wrong diagnosis and they die. There's actually been a study. I did pull it up, a name of the study, because we like to have facts here on Vegan Stew. We don't play around on the Vegan Stew. And I'm going to see if I can find it on this ridiculous piece of paper that I did in the car. The name of the study is here somewhere, but it talked about access to care, quality of care, limited English proficiency, and how that becomes a barrier. Limited English proficiency, because of the 281 million Americans that are above 5 years old, 20% of them speak English as a second language. So when they can't explain things at the hospital, and then there's the misdiagnosis right there. So that really impacts the communities of color and Latino. So I see many, many forks and spoons and knives and going up. So I'm going to go with Kelly first, then we're going to go with Helene.
That's a really good point, because although our healthcare is covered, that doesn't mean that there is easy access to doctors. And I know, for example, like I was talking to someone, this not necessarily have to do with the BIPOC community, but they were saying like just in one of our provinces, like the doctor comes out to see the small town once a month, so if they need to get into healthcare, they have to drive hours, and these, so I'm sure it's even more prevalent with the Indigenous community living up north. No doctor wants to live there. They probably have even less access to it. So just because our healthcare is covered for us doesn't mean that they can access it easy.
Doesn't mean it's equitable. That's a good point. Yeah. So Helene?
So let's talk about, excuse me, Serena Williams for a moment.
Right.
Because let's talk about somebody who has money, who has, obviously, everyone knows who she is, including people in a hospital. But she had to fight for her health when she gave birth to her baby, because she said something's wrong and they said, you're fine. And she said, no, something's wrong. And they were like, no, you're fine. She was like, something's wrong. And something was wrong. And she fought. She had to advocate for herself to say, you need to do something. And I think she might have died if they hadn't actually stepped in and done something.
It was life-threatening.
So, but they ignored her. And I'm telling you, that's the color of her skin. Because that's not okay. And that's somebody, and then you think about somebody who has no money, or doesn't speak English as a first language, or just, they just go in and they see color and they just go, well, you don't know. You don't know either. But if I come in and say, this is how I feel, you're supposed to do something about that. And I shouldn't have to fight you to get my healthcare taken care of, because I've come to get help.
Right. And then of course, again, so money is an equalizer when it comes to systemic inequities, especially in, countries where we haven't quite faced our past as well as we could have, to get, because until you talk about it fully and take off the gloves, and just really have a talk about it. Like we can talk on this show. I mean, if Congress could talk like we talk, we'd be in a much better situation, right? The name of the agency, let me just say, that had that study about the quality of care and that limited was Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. Just so we have the name of that study, Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and it talks specifically about the disparities. But money isn't it? It's the systemic inequities. And I saw that Susan Francis put transportation is also a barrier to access to healthcare. I actually, so thanks for that, Susan. I actually had a niece that had a stroke. She's 20 when she had a stroke, and she went in the hospital, and she's in New Rochelle, New York. Her mother does well. She's she's financially secure, and daughter went to Cornell, graduated from Cornell. All these different things. If you want to talk about all these quote things where it shouldn't be an issue, she actually was in the hospital. She was in the hospital for 3 weeks. No one could tell her why she had a stroke. They told her it was birth control. But they had no real understanding of why. When she was concerned, her foot, she also had a foot that was numb. She had paralyzed foot. And there was just no explanation. And then one doctor told her, and I had to fly to New York at that point. One doctor told her, well, it's common in African-American communities. That was the answer to the question from the neurologist, right? So I came up, and then I brought my friends with me, Milton, Dr. Mills, and I had 2 or 3 other doctors on my phone, and we got some different information. But everybody doesn't have access to those folks. So there's a problem with barriers to access, and this is why highlighting Minority Health Month is important, because it brings attention and it makes allies more aware of these disparities. So I guess what can we do in our individual communities for those who are allies and want to help? Like, what do you think the best solutions would be to help? I mean, is it education, or is it something else? Or so I'll let you guys raise a fork, spoon, or knife or something, and just call it out. I don't have any tools here. I have a pen. So I'm gonna go with Kimberly first because she smiled first. Go, Kimberly.
If I could first, I wanted to kind of jump on what Helene was saying.
Yes.
A friend of
Mhm.
mine is a woman heart champion. She had a widowmaker heart attack that she actually survived.
Wow.
And yeah, so she's a women heart champion, and we've had conversations where she talks about how as women, when we go to the doctor and or the hospital and we think there's something wrong, it's always like, you're fine, you're anxious, you're depressed, it's all in your head. And then if you push, then they're like, oh god, she's crazy. And I
Mhm.
think, when you're also, let's say, like Serena Williams, if she hadn't been famous,
Vigilant. Mhm.
like, would they have said, oh my, this crazy black woman, yelling at us, like, would they have then turned it into, she's not just a woman, she's a black woman, so now she's loud and she's crazy, and
Yes.
then she wouldn't have gotten the help that she needed. And it's so important for women to always advocate for themselves. And then when, if English isn't your first language, and it's hard to communicate with a doctor who is only speaking English, there's just so many things just stacked against you. And what can you do about it? So I think, I don't have an answer. I know I don't have an answer. But I think it is important, for people like me to understand that that's what's happening. And I don't know, I don't have any doctor friends, but I think if I did, I'd be like, you might want to consider this and maybe look at these studies and understand that, like, you can't just lump people into, oh yeah, a numb foot is very common among the African American community. Like, that's not okay. Like, you've got to
And
get
then,
into it. People,
right.
you
and
got to
you-
treat people as individuals and consider all of their symptoms. And I don't know. I don't have an answer, but I
So
hope
so
one of
I'll
us can
circle.
come up with something.
I'll circle back after Helene, unless Kelly has something.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Widowmaker for a second,
Mhm.
so that people understand what that is, because especially every woman watching this show, and you need to tell every woman that you know, and every man needs to know what a Widowmaker is. A story that I told again as an educator in the classroom to the students was a husband and wife were in bed, and the wife was not feeling well. She was nauseous, she was throwing up, and she just felt off. And the husband was like, what's going on? She woke up in the middle of the night, because everything always happens in the middle of the night when you're really sick. And she was like, oh, I think I have a stomach virus. And I'm not, I just don't feel well. And he said, no, we need to go to the hospital. And she was like, no, I'll be fine. It just has to pass. And he was like, no, we're going to the ER. Well, guess what that's a symptom of? A Widowmaker heart attack. Why? Because what do we see on television? We see the typical symptoms of a heart attack of clutch chest, grab arm, fall over. That's the symptoms of a man having a heart attack, because we don't focus on the healthcare of women in this country. We don't focus on how we're diagnosed and how it's different. We also don't focus on the fact that women are more prone to heart attacks than men. Did you know that? Probably not. Do you need to know what the signs of a Widowmaker are so that woman didn't go back to sleep and die? She would have died if she'd gone back to sleep. Her husband was astute enough to say, no, something's wrong here. We need to do more. Why don't most people know that?
Well, so that's a very good point. So since we're on the heart disease, MontgomeryHeart.com. If you can put that in, Helene, MontgomeryHeart.com. Dr. Baxter Montgomery is a cardiologist and a cardiac electrophysiologist.
HART?
Huh?
HART or HEART?
HEART.
Thank you.
Montgomery Heart, HEART. Thank you. So he has a book called The Food Prescription for Better Health for All Cause Diseases, and he specifically speaks about health for all of us. But if you go to his site, he has free information on there on how to do a detox, how to really reverse heart disease, and how to get into it. And he'll be at the summit in April 30th. But that being aside, yeah, women are African American women are 50% of us will die from heart disease. 50%. This is not might die, will die. Will. This is like right, if it was right now, that's the study. And women could have the cholesterol chest, but it doesn't matter if you're that point you're dead. There's a whole section on page 11, starting on page 11 of Dr. Montgomery's book that talks about Widowmaker and speaks specifically about the this large why that particularly happens. So I encourage everyone to go and find out his book, and you can get it at the event, or you can get it on his website or at Amazon. Very helpful for people that want to know about the distinctions between the different kind of heart diseases. Heart attacks that one can have. But women, there's just 92 million Americans have heart disease. 92 million right now, right, suffering from some form of heart disease. So, this is an epidemic. This is a pandemic. So, sometimes it goes beyond race, right? What we're really talking about is a sick country with eating a standard American diet that is killing us, eating meat and dairy that's killing the planet, killing the people, and killing the animals. And Diane Chadwick said, I kept going to the doctor for something being wrong, kept being told, no, there's nothing wrong. It's in your head. Well, 3 years later, you go and she's been diagnosed with lung cancer. See, listen to your body. Absolutely, Diane. Thank you for sharing that. And we hope for your speedy recovery. And I recommend for you that you reach out to MontgomeryHeart.com, go to that website. When you have been diagnosed with cancer, you get raw detox is important, to do a raw detox and to go more of a raw direction. Milton Mills has a whole Dr. Milton Mills Plant-Based Nation. I know it's long. I didn't tell him to do that. We can talk to our friend later. But Dr. Milton Mills Plant-Based Nation.com. It's a million words, but I'm telling you, he has a lecture on cancer, how to reverse cancer, and how to get cancer. So Diane, I encourage you to find Milton Mills' lecture on cancer. And it's very educational. He's super smart, and he's a super student of the craft of medicine. So I'm so sorry that happened to you. But back on with allies. No, I guess the only answers we can do is being allies. So Kimberly, your question was being an ally. Being an ally is the most important part. Taking the time, I think, there is no answer. We have chronic disease. We lose almost 2 million people a year to chronic disease in the United States. Predominantly, the death and disability rates are disproportionate for people of color. That being a fact, we also have, almost 2 million people a year dying a year. So let's look at that. What do we need to do to be an ally to communities, that might be helpful? Partner with me. Partner with people that look like me, because it's easier to go into community if I'm your sidekick like Ebony and Ivory, right? Than to go straight in. That's one thing that I would recommend to people that are on our feed right now. So any other tips? I know that's a tip that's worked with one friend of mine. I have a friend named Lori, and she takes me with her and we do stuff because she can't break through the Baptist church. She just can't. She brings the wrong food, and then she talks, and it sounds like she's preaching. And then they smile and they don't listen to her. So
it's important, Dawn, that like producing festivals, having events, the events need to look like the community that they're in.
Yes.
And if the community is a mixed community, has a high population of minorities, they need to be welcome and feel comfortable coming and be represented at that event, which is what brought us together.
Good point.
Because
yes,
I needed Greenville Fun Fest to not be white woman brings white people to a festival in Greenville, South Carolina. I needed the event to represent the community. And because of our relationship, it did, and it will continue to be that way. And the attendants and the vendors looked like the people that lived there. But that takes a conscious effort. I just can't expect it to happen. That doesn't make sense. We have to want to. We want to do this. You have to want to bring people together. You have to be conscious that needs to happen. and why it needs to happen, especially with a vegan focused event. Well, I'm trying to reach a community that really needs to know about whole food, plant-based, and vegan for their own health. And if I can't get them in the door, then I haven't done my job. I know you have some feedback. Can you hear us though? her earbuds battery might have died. You're both muted. That's awesome.
Okay, I'm back. I can hear now. I can hear
Okay.
now. So my phone might go out, but if I turn the car on, I lose you guys. So I didn't get to hear the last very good bits of information you gave, but I saw the passion in your face. It sure was really good. But can you do a quick recap? I didn't hear it because Kelly's next.
No, I said if I don't make sure that the events have look like the communities that we're in, that I haven't done my job.
So I'm going to circle back on that, Kelly, and then I'm going to circle back on that because that's so very important, and I'll tell you some of the things about that. So, Kelly.
So this might not be helpful or useful at all. I'm just trying to think of like kind of expanding on the education. It's not just one thing to educate and be like, hey, the BIPOC community has, a more risk at this and that. It's educating on who you can support. So I'm not sure if there's like nonprofits that are helping, like people, like get transportation money so that they can get to the doctor or fresh food or whatever. So highlighting those organizations so that they can get more donations.
Right. So they can get more. So that's a very excellent point. Making sure we highlight partnerships that already are in the community doing certain work. So making sure so I guess that's something we could all do a better job at. So that's a good one. Thank you so much. Helene, I wanted to circle back. Initially, you and I were cool, and we're Sagittarian, so we're transparent. Sorry about the zodiac. But I was a little apprehensive, and I'll tell you why. Because I have been approached, and there's sometimes a cultural appropriation that happens that makes African Americans a little suspect. Like, you just want a grant, you don't really want to help us, right? Because I don't live I'm not experiencing those health disparities, but everybody that I know has a relative that is. So it makes us a little apprehensive. But we've got to do a little better job as African Americans and as people of color, the BIPOC, a little bit more. Everybody's not going to get us. Some people are going to get us though, but that's okay. Some people really genuinely want to help us. So that's where I would say, speak to my community directly. Everybody's not coming for us, but we have a chip. There's a bit of a chip because so many systemic inequities have happened. And because we're having so many struggles, we tend to be a little bit standoffish at first. So just be a little patient with us, because that thing on our shoulders are legitimately there. We just need to vet a little bit longer. And it seems like we're being a little bit weird and angry, but in actuality, we've been burned a lot. We've been burned in partnerships. I know that's happened to me. And I know that some other folks who do vegan, or just not even vegan, but just other community type stuff, it happens. So thank you so much. We've got to make sure. I love what Kelly said though, about making sure we find out who's already out there doing stuff and kind of funnel, even if it's not financial support, because everybody can't afford to do financial. Maybe it's just a partnership of like marketing or put it on your page, because putting it on your page, putting a stat on your page, about disparities and learn more. Though every little bit helps. So I think that we as a group right now are doing better than the National Minority Health people did on their website. It was very pitiful. And when I called, one of the people they answered the phone, didn't even know what I was talking about. And this was the national office in DC, the agency. So it's unfortunate. I would love to know, Kelly, though, in Canada, there have to be some studies that have been done with the Indigenous people in Canada. And if there are some disparities, I wonder if we can ever circle back to that. I wonder if there's some things going on with some the Black and Brown community in Canada. And even though you had the full health care, do you have similar barriers to success? with regarding the health disparities. It's got to be something out there. I'd love to learn more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know for sure access to clean water is a big thing here, and there are something like dozens, if not hundreds, of indigenous communities that like have literally never had clean water. So water.
That's
water's
terrible.
a big thing. If you don't have clean water, I mean, you can get sick by drinking unclean water. So that is definitely like a big issue here is the water.
Yeah, that reminds me of Flint, Michigan, guys. You know about Flint; they still don't have that together. But is it because of the oil pipelines, or is it because of something else? And we're still on topic, which is my minority. Is it because of the oil pipelines, or is it because of the gas, fracking, or what are you learning that it's from?
Yes, and I think it's also just infrastructure, and then sadly deprioritized.
Yeah. So again, allies. I mean, that's why this show is important. Shows like this are important, even though we don't get a lot of bandwidth in watching. Every little bit helps, and what we're doing is we're growing more allies. We one ally at a time to work together with us on this mission to have equity, to have health, and to come into the vegan lifestyle, understanding it affects environment, health, and animals. It affects the planet, the environment, and animals. All of it. So I just think it's important what's being done. The National Minority Health Attention, it just needs a little bit more awareness. So thank you, Helene, for bringing it up today for us, allowing us to talk about it. Let me see what else I have on my sheet.
One thing while you're looking, Dawn, is on Columbia Veg Fest, Yolanda Williams commented. She said, "Nice to see you again, Dawn. I met you through Devon Barefruit Conservatory." And she said, "Yeah, my son," going back a little bit because I just looked, "my son was diagnosed with diabetes type 1. It's about how the foods affect your hormones. Grapes can be just as dangerous as candy if you eat too much of it and overload your system." So a little delayed from our diabetes part of the talk, but I just realized that somebody commented in something.
Oh, let me see. I'm trying to go back and see. I don't even
you can't see it.
Oh,
because
okay.
It's on one of the pages that I share too, as opposed to that we could stream
okay.
to. Yeah.
Okay, what was her name again?
Yolanda.
Okay, I was a part of the Barefoot, which is an organization that helps with arts education. There's a side of me that's playwright. Okay, forget it. Anyway, yes. So hello, Yolanda. I'm glad you're watching. Yes, grapes are high. So it depends on if you're comparing it to a piece of candy. So grape is not a bad guy, but it is very sugary. It's the most sugary. Like a pineapple is very high in sugar. A grape is high in sugar, but it's okay. There's nothing. That's not. I think she said something about hormones. What did she say?
I have to go back to the messages.
Yeah, but it's something about hormones. Okay, so I don't know. I'd need to have the science behind that and some information. But what I know is that it's always healthier to eat an intact fruit than it is to eat an intact piece of candy or anything that's highly processed. So but I do appreciate that there is a distinction between a grape and a blueberry. There's a difference, right?
Yes.
But in the amount of antioxidants, in the color, the anthocyanins, there's a lot of science behind that. And I advise everybody to go to PCRM. There's something called the Rainbow, and PCRM.org is a Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They'll send you free fact sheets that you can share with your community. And one of them is the rainbow, or why color matters, and the amount of anthocyanins and what the different colors mean, and the sweet sugar content. So I'm not sure that that's factual what's said, but I really appreciate Yolanda joining us and coming in, because it is a very sugary snack. But if you eat it alongside meat, it's like, I mean, this is just, we just have to reduce our risk factors for chronic disease by let's not beat up fruit all the time. I beat up the comfort vegan. I'm not trying to beat you up, Kimberly. I snack on low comfort food too. Listen, I enjoy it too, but it's a treat. It's not regular. But the thing about it is, it's still significantly better than the harmful and toxic effects of eating animal protein. of any kind, fish, all of it. And especially for communities of color, since there's a disproportionate rate of death and disability. Even amputations are 60% higher in Black communities. Isn't that crazy? Because we don't. I had a friend who came over to look at my house. His name is Al, not a friend, someone I knew, associate. He came over. He was told to amputate his arm because he had a tree fell on him. Right? They told him that they were going to amputate his arm. He said, "I think I can get the strength back." He said, "No." They said you need to amputate it. He didn't. The day that he's supposed to have an amputation, he told them no. He was surgically prepped and everything. He said no. Guess what happened 2 years, about a year and a half later? He has 90% strength in the arm, and they were going to cut it off. So I don't know if it was because, there's no proof that it was because he's an African American. There's no proof of that whatsoever. But there have been cases where that is the case, maybe not in amputations, but in other things. But we shouldn't have a 60% higher rate of amputation as a community. So these are just things that we need allies like everyone on this feed. We need to continue to just be aware that there are differences and it's not made up in our head. Like, it's real, and we just all need to be allies in making sure that we all have better health. So, Helene?
One thing I want to say that Yolanda mentioned, it was type 1 diabetes, which is very different from type 2. Type 2
she
is
said type 1.
Type 1,
Oh,
very, very different.
I'm sorry.
So, right.
Different animal altogether.
Exactly. So, I mean, scratch a little bit of what Dawn said, type 1 diabetes, but
yeah,
still.
Yolanda, I'm sorry. Yeah, Yolanda, you're right. The type 1 diabetes does have different, and again, but that's addressed in the Program to Reverse Diabetes in Dr. Neil Barnard's book. So that's a gift for anyone. You're not going to reverse type 1 diabetes, but you can manage it, right? With plant-based in a
with a whole food plant-based diet, you can definitely manage your type 1 diabetes better
absolutely.
than if you were not. That's 100% true. And the other thing is like really important is that a lot of things one of the things that is really important that I think gives us as not people of color but women a kind of an understanding is that we're women. That chip on the shoulder, that being taken advantage of, not necessarily trusting the people that want to come and talk with you and like partner with you or present something to you.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand if a white man came to you, you might be a little more skeptical than a white woman comes to you. The level of skepticism might be a little more. And we understand. I understand that completely because I live in a world where I'm female and females are not prioritized. And then you just kind of go from there, white female, white Jewish female, to people of color, to minorities, Asian, Hispanic, female. It's health. And going back to the health to tie it in, females, there are problems in our bodies that the research community, the scientific research community hasn't researched. That only happen in women. They don't put the money towards it because it's only in women.
Well, even if they put the money toward it, I mean, they put money toward the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society, and that's just money spent. I just think people should be more, money isn't always the end. There are tens of thousands of studies. There may have been some studies specific to women, but are they funded by industry? Are they funded to support our better health, or are they funded to support industry profit making and profiteering? Are they funded to create subsidies, continued subsidies for Congress to pass out so they can get voted back in? So we have to look at kind of those things. We do have tens of thousands of studies, so I don't believe certain things are studied, but it's all in what what the study was focused on and who funded it. And money's not all. I mean, American Cancer Society serves hamburgers and steak at their galas. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, and they have, we all watch What the Health. We know what happened. So, it is unfortunate, but this disproportionality with women, especially, I like to keep race out of the women so we can have distinctive pockets. But we need to do something about women's health. We need to do a show about women's health because I think there's worthy, it's important because there are some serious differentiations that deserve their own standing on this program. So look, we have a whole. My phone didn't go dead. I'm so excited. So
we still have a minute.
we still have a minute. Oh no, no, it's okay. So we still have a minute. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is leave it to every. Okay, so what might you? So I'm gonna ask everyone in this last minute. What are you gonna do differently now that you have your awareness has been raised here recently? What might you do differently in your own community to better ally with communities that are experiencing these disparities? Start with Helene. You're going to end it. Start with Kelly.
I'm going to definitely do what I just said, and that is, make these organizations who's helping these communities more aware. And what I could do myself, as a small business owner, is offer to do like a portion of sales to these organizations as well.
That's great. Thank you so much. That's excellent. Kimberly?
Start sharing more information, researching it first, sharing more information, hopefully maybe having a Dawn the Vegucator on my podcast at some point after your event. I would love that. And really, yeah, just kind of putting that focus, on different groups, not just kind of an overarching, like, here's a good health tip, and kind of, call out specific health tips for people.
That's good. That's excellent. So I'm going to end my part here. And I wanted to say Susan Francis. Susan's great. She Nurses Health Study, Adventist Study, I'd add to that, and the Framingham Study. Then there's so many good studies out there. I just advise us to all look at them so that we can be better educators in our own individual communities. So Helene, you have the last question and you can take us out.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, I'm going to finish up with this topic and then I'll put everyone back in the green room and close out the show. But Dawn,
I'm losing sun. The sun is leaving. I gotta.
So you still look great, just so you know.
Thank you.
I want to do more. Like we've spoken about going into churches and educating. I want to find the time to do that because it would be, one, it'd be incredible. Two, I think we'd be fantastic together. And between the food and the conversation, reaching people where they're at and relatably, I feel like that's something I could do with you as I couldn't do necessarily on my own. So thanks, Susan. Really appreciate you.
Thanks, Susan.
So that's my final say on that. And I'm going to close out the show. So thank you, Dawn, so much. Say bye, Kimberly. Bye, Kelly. Bye, Dawn. So everyone, thank you once again for watching The Vegan Stew. We really appreciate that you were joining us and the interaction. This was chock full of great information that hopefully you can share with everyone you know, because it's important, not just the Minority Health Month, but health in general, which sounds like we're going to do a female health show eventually. We will be back next week at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the next version of The Vegan Stew. What that topic is, no idea. You'll see it when I post it. After I close out this show, I'll post the next one and look and see what our topic is. Remember to go to virtualvegfestlive.com and enter our contest or wish pond. Really cool prizes from our sponsors. TerraSeed being our monthly sponsor this month of Virtual Veg Fest Live. And outside of that, we really appreciate you. Be kind, be careful. Just, we didn't wear masks in New York for a funeral and we came home sick. So we don't have COVID, but we got sick. Kimberly went into a room with 8 people and got COVID. So you just never know like where and when sickness is going to happen. But the more we're around people now indoors, the more likelihood that we won't feel well. So when you do that, be kind, take care of yourselves. And as Dawn told me, she's gone, as Dawn told me, she said, ask for help and have someone get you food or bring you something when we were both sick. I still ordered from Whole Foods, but I did ask a friend to see if they want to come help me. So, but yeah, if you have the community, ask them for help. We're not askers, we're givers. So I, still did it on my own, but I did help in the conversation. So remember that. And remember to be kind, because you never know where people are at and whatever there is in their lives at the moment of time that you intersect with them. So other than that, have a great week, and we will see you next week. See Kimberly on Monday, yoga tomorrow at 12:30, a new yoga show, Wake Up and Yoga, next Tuesday, 11 a.m. with Anna from World Peace Yoga in Cincinnati. So super excited about that too. 2 yogas, Kimberly, Coach Kayla, Vegan Stew, Virtual Virtuous Live with me. All will be back. Lots of stuff to choose from, lots of information. And, we really appreciate you. So have a good night. Bye.